So here's a basic rule about jiu-jitsu that I've said for a long time. You'll hear Kavanaugh say this a lot as well. Jiu-jitsu done well should not hurt. If it hurts, if it's painful, if your jaw hurts or whatever, it's usually wrong. But it should kill you, right? So the jiu-jitsu I'm looking for, it's not gonna hurt, but if he doesn't tap and I just stay there, he'll die. That's what we want.
What we're doing has value in people's lives. Pressure is what makes people better.
In that case, let's have some fun.
It's gonna be a great year for everybody. Everybody who wants it to be.
Part of what we do at SBG should be a little bit unique because our take on the curriculum is a little bit different. It's much more fundamental. The way we teach, the material we teach is different. If you travel around to different Brazilian Jiu Jitsu schools or mixed martial arts schools, some of you will kind of figure that out and you'll see oftentimes the opposite of what I'm trying to advocate for. So it does put us in a unique position as well once you understand it. So there's some value there, but it's also just, it's the kind of thing that I think a lot about when it comes to how can we make the best curriculum to get people as good as possible, as quickly as possible, which is what it's all about. Okay, and I've already mentioned part of what a great curriculum is all about, and a great curriculum is all about for me is fundamentals. And when I say fundamentals, or when you guys say fundamentals, when we talk about fundamentals in SBG, I'm not talking about what's basic, I'm always talking about what's most important. And my theory has always been that if you continually teach the fundamentals, the rest of it you don't even need to teach. The rest of it people will figure out on their own. Not only that, but once you veer from the fundamentals and you start teaching people chain movements, like I do this, they respond this way, and then you do this, it's only going to apply to a small portion of the room. Other people are going to have other combinations that are going to work better for them that they would have found out faster if you hadn't interfered in that process. And so the analogy I've often used is the difference between paint by numbers and teaching people fundamentals of painting and then letting them go paint. And what I want you guys to do is focus on teaching them the fundamentals of painting, or in this case, fighting, and then let them go forward and figure out all the details. It's an environment where failing is encouraged. And that's the number one job of what you do as a coach, creating that environment. And then all the other stuff, like with the curriculum is so good, the training methods are so good, jiu-jitsu works so well, you don't really need to do anything else. Like you will produce, people will come out of your gym, that'll be awesome. And you almost can't give yourself too much credit for that. What you should get the most credit for is creating the environment where that happened. It's the thing, right, why most all of us, probably not jiu-jitsu instructors, but most of us will be replaced at some point by AI. But it's just because AI fails really well. They'll play 400 million games, fail 300 million times, and learn all this in the process without any emotional attachment to the outcome. It's perfect. So the more you can learn like that, the better. Anything else? Yes?
What would be your biggest tip for when you're going to seminars to be able to retain the information given? Since there's a lot of information given within a 3 to 6 hour period, what would your biggest tip be?
Sure. Try and focus on what's fundamental that the coach is teaching. Base posture. Base posture, connection. Connection, that's connection. Posture between base and posture and pressure is that connection piece. And not so much on what's not fundamental. He's got all kinds of stuff. He has this arm bar, step over the head. Yeah, go back. He has this attack. He can take that hand and attack here. If there is a big movement there that's used in different places that the coach is focusing the class around, try and discern what that is. And then I power shrimp into him. Then I step and I go, power shrimp, and I would be going thumb down. Thumb down, and pay attention to that. And then make sure you really understand that before you even worry about all the other stuff that they'll show after. So just a little pressure, and that's the choke. Now, good coaches will design their class like that. John Frankel teaches that way, right? A lot of coaches do that. So with him, you know, he's going to show you the meat of what he's trying to do. And that's what you want to pay attention to. It's base, posture, connection, pressure. Connect, feel that connection before you work the pressure for the escape. Don't try and apply pressure when you're not in base and posture. So when you wind up getting up here and you're out of base and posture, you need to get back to posture. But if you only got the first part and maybe one of those things, that's perfect. That's much better than kind of half knowing all 5, but you didn't quite get the big picture. You missed the steak for all the parsley, right? So try and focus on that. And when I teach my seminar this weekend, I will tell you as we go what's important. Maintain that connection. Always control the inside space. Connection. Do I have the inside space or does he? I will focus the whole class on what's important. Feel that connection, good connection. I connect, and then towards the end, add a few things that will also be important. But what's most important, I will mention to you, but I want to connect. Again, that goes to connections. Maintain this connection. Now I have good connection, and the whole class will be designed around that. So this is everywhere. Base posture into pressure, which is what most jiu-jitsu people do, or you can do a base posture connection and then into pressure, which is what you just saw right here. Our goal is to build people up, make good people more dangerous to bad people, help people who are not necessarily strong become stronger. If you just get that part of it, then you'll be doing great. Number one principle for SBG is and always has been aliveness. The biggest misunderstanding I still hear from people, not in SBG, but outside it as it relates to this, is they'll equate aliveness to sparring. And they'll say, well, we pressure test the material, we spar. Well, aliveness is not sparring. Aliveness is making sure that what your opponent or training partner is doing and what you are doing is going to actually help you gain timing. Because it's not in a pattern, it's not contrived with a unrealistic type of motion or energy, and you're moving in an unrehearsed way. But nothing about that says it has to be rough or that it's sparring. You can take a small piece like fighting for a grip or owning one little piece of real estate in the match in jiu-jitsu, a tiny piece, and drill it softly with aliveness. You can have somebody come back from surgery and just be getting back on the mat and be training with aliveness. That will translate directly when they do spar, right? Nothing has to be changed. Like they don't have to do the move different when they're working against a fully resisting opponent. That's what aliveness is about. The more fundamental you keep the curriculum, the easier it should be for you and your students to move back and forth, to take the gi on, to put the gi off, to put in strikes sometimes, right? To include a weapon if you want to talk about self-defense stuff. The easier it will be to do that. And if your game falls apart when you take the gi off or when you put it on or when somebody slaps you in the face, you don't have a game based on fundamentals.
Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for coming.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was like life-changing.
Oh, really? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And generally with a curriculum like this is something I've been working on, the progression and the specific material for a couple years. I'll start the year before with my own students and kind of experiment with different combinations of movements to see which one helps people the most, and then I'll put it together. And then, like I said, every single time I teach it, I'll change it up a little bit to try and make it better. But then at the end of the year, the entire thing will go up online, and there'll be tons and tons of all this kind of material online for people who want to see it. StraightBlastGymUniversity.com, SBGUniversity.com. You can, if they just go to StraightBlastGym.com, they can link to it from there.
Just because of the yoga stuff.
Yeah, that's where I stole it from.
Getting the attention out of here.
Exactly.
And getting it out into here.
Exactly, yeah.
That's really cool.
Oh, it's good, yeah. I just don't, I don't say yoga because I don't want to give my wife too much credit. Her head will just get super big. I'm going to take an extra step. Put your elbow and your hand on the mat. Close your eyes. You feel where your ribs are in their ribs? I'm going to put my hip there. And now I'm going to sit out. Now take your elbow off the mat. Okay, it's fucking horrible. Right? Let me trade spots with you. Now we have the right mechanics to keep somebody pinned on top using as much of our weight as possible, and you have the right mechanics for the escape when somebody's holding you that way. Now we can play the game at a different level. So here's a basic rule about jiu-jitsu that I've said for a long time. You'll hear Kavanaugh say this a lot as well. Jiu-jitsu done well should not hurt. If it hurts, if it's painful, if your jaw hurts or whatever, it's usually wrong. But it should kill you, right? So the jiu-jitsu I'm looking for, it's not going to hurt, but if he doesn't tap and I just stay there, he'll die. That's what we want. That's how you should feel on top. That's why even if you lose weight, the longer you do jiu-jitsu, the heavier you should feel, because you get more relaxed. You get more relaxed as you play. And this won't go away. This is an attribute base. So when you're 60, you can still play this game, right? See, there's no escapes.
Now no one's gonna be able to hold cross.
I hope so. It should look more like the beginning of class again. But Rickson really is at a different level from most other jiu-jitsu players, which I believe is true. And you ask yourself why. It's not because he knows more technique or new technique, because he didn't. His jiu-jitsu is very simple. My hypothesis is that when he rolls, when he was able to roll, and this is his as well, which is where I think he got the theory from, he maintains connection throughout the roll. I think that a lot of this is getting lost. So what happens is when the base posture connection isn't passed down to the other students, and there's not that many people, I think, in the world that are really know the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, then that's made up for with movement. That's made up for with counter for counter movement, which is the evolution of jiu-jitsu that you see today. And that's beautiful, and I'm not saying anything against that, and it's awesome, and they're great competitors. But I don't see a lot of the pressure anymore. And I know from my experience traveling around that when people come to different gyms or travel around who do have that pressure, they usually catch people by surprise, because the rest of the people in the gym aren't used to it. Because almost everybody is holding each other down with their hips on the mat, with their knees on the mat, and they're making up for all the space that gets created by doing more transitions and movement. And it's a beautiful game. It's awesome, especially when you're 20 and 30. But when you start to get outside your weight class, or when we transition into fighting, or when you get older, it's not going to carry over quite as well, because anything that's movement for movement is going to be, to a degree, more attribute-based than something that's based on pressure and weight. Because we all get slower, but few of us get lighter. And if you keep training jiu-jitsu and you get more relaxed, even if you get lighter, you'll still get heavier. So when we can learn to use that weight and pressure to make up for scrambles. But I just think a lot of this information is missing. So one of my goals with SBG is, in the next 10 or 20 years, myself and some of the other coaches, is to collect as much of this information as possible and kind of boil it down and then pass that along as the curriculum so that you guys have it to torture everybody else with.
Very much.
You bet. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. It's
Thank
always
you.
good, and honestly,
Good.
every time is better than the time before.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
That was your best seminar so far.
Oh, good. It's good to hear. This will make a massive difference in your cross-side game. You're playing totally different now. We show it immediately in the foundations class in Portland to my white belts, and it makes a massive difference, and they're getting the best white belts I've ever had. And what we're trying to do with jiu-jitsu is take out all the places where you're using too much strength or you have to rely on strength, and we're trying to take out all the places where you scramble. So that way, as you get older, or you go up against somebody bigger, faster, stronger, more explosive than you, you can survive long enough to beat them. Light bulb just go off for you? When you feel them go to bridge you, I want you to pull with your heels using your hamstrings and drive your butt down through their chest, making their heart explode. Now go to move. This is horrible, right? Try and move your arm. Right? 5 or 6 minutes under that, and then go for a submission. They're ready just to give you the arm. Especially for tournaments. You'll do very well against most other jiu-jitsu people, because they don't even, most other jiu-jitsu schools, especially the ones that gear their jiu-jitsu towards tournaments, which I don't, they won't know the escapes from here. And you'll torture them. All right, now let's talk about escaping from that position. I always have a couple goals when I teach. So the first one is to help people understand the big picture of jiu-jitsu so they can understand how jiu-jitsu works themselves so that they can problem solve, which is important. I think I accomplished that. My second goal is always that by the time they end my class, they're measurably better than they were before. I know I accomplished that. You can see that by watching the mat. So you can see what the round was like on Saturday morning and compare that to what it is at the end of Saturday or at the end of Sunday. And everybody's much heavier and everybody's escapes are much better. So that, as a coach, gives me a good feeling of job satisfaction. So anybody that's interested in my teaching or material or teaching of the other coaches can go to sbguniversity.com, and we have online subscription. We have separate products people can buy. My classes that I teach weekly at my own gym in Portland are up there, and there'll be tons and tons of all this kind of material online for people who want to see it.
Freaking amazing, and if you didn't come, you missed out.
It's totally different than most seminars you would normally do.
We drove a little ways to get here, and we're certainly happy we did.
Mind-blowing.
It's going to make a huge difference in my game.
This was one of the best seminars ever.
The difference between having a decent understanding and then being able to do it against bigger, stronger, heavier people are those little details, and he really does dive into those in a deep way.
Very small details that were huge game changers.
Finer details he really focuses on, and changing your train of thought to having base and posture.
Connection is everywhere.
Before applying pressure, it really makes all the escapes twice as effective.
Awesome for escapes and surviving, especially when you're constantly going up against guys who are heavier than you and literally half your age. It's nice to know you can survive and escape. So, highly recommend.
I feel a lot safer on bottom, so thank you very much.
Especially at the white belt level, we find not only we can survive, but now we have different methods of escape.
We've been to quite a few of Coach Matt's seminars, and I swear every time they're better than the time before.
It's my first seminar. I'm a white belt, starting new here at the gym, and I thought it was fantastic. Eye-opening, a bunch of bulbs lit for me, connections made.
I would definitely recommend this seminar to my brother Joe. Shout out Lil Drip. I think he needs to get back into jits. I think you'd love the seminar.
Matt puts a tremendous amount of thought and preparation, and the fact that he travels worldwide and sees the information that he's going to give to us transcends culture, it transcends gym, it transcends body type, so it's solid information that we can all learn from.
As usual, it's always a humbling experience to have my coach up here. I often forget how much more room I have to improve in terms of my teaching and the things that I focus on and how I present them. And so it's always a pleasure. And I don't think anyone in the world does a better job at teaching the fundamentals than Matt Thornton. And, you know, I'm just really thankful that SBG was my first exposure to the martial arts, and that I was able to start with the best organization on day one and stick with it. I could say something like, if you didn't make it, you missed out. You should check it out on SBGU. But what I really want to say is you're kind of an idiot for missing this opportunity, especially if you're from my gym. So I'm speaking to everybody in Montana now that wasn't on the mats this weekend. You're an idiot.
I'm not going to take my knees off the mat because I don't want Travis's head to explode. But this is how little pressure it should take. Does that hurt? No, but it will kill him. And that's what's important.